How can you avoid making one of the most common mistakes in the interview room? Welcome back to another video. I'm David Pinkley. I'm an expert on hiring and on getting hired. Some people call me the career sage. Other people call me the resume sage. Some people call me the hiring sage. Whatever you call me, I want to bring to you jet fuel for your career, whether you're actively hiring or actively trying to get hired. Today we want to talk about interviewing, okay? You've already got your resume finished. You apply for a job. You've got your LinkedIn profile spit polished, and it's working for you. You actually apply for a job, you get called for an interview, and now you show up for the very first interview, face-to-face. I guess it could also be a video interview. Either way, the first round interview. Not with a recruiter, not with the staffing agency, but with the company or nonprofit or organization that you applied to. What's one of the biggest mistakes that people make in that process? You want to know what it is? And it's not something that you're going to hear probably anywhere else. The biggest mistake is that people oversell. People oversell. What do I mean by that? If you're going to show up in my office for a potential hire for a job that you're qualified for, presumably that's a job you want. I would assume, for the most part, you wouldn't be showing up wasting my time, wasting your time, if you weren't interested in the job. Okay? Got that. You wouldn't be sitting in my interview room if you weren't qualified for the job, because we would have weeded you out in the interview, or the resume selection and LinkedIn selection process. We would have weeded you out. So if you're sitting in my interview office, or sitting in my office to interview with me, face-to-face or vis-a-vis video, the presupposition is that it's a job you're qualified for, a job you're interested in, a job that you actually care to be in, care to have, right? And so with that as a baseline, it would make sense that you would come in ready to sell, come in ready to prove to me that your experience is relevant, ready to prove to me that your credentials, that your past achievements are all indicators of why you're a great hire for me and my company. Totally makes sense. You should be confident, and you should be ready to sell yourself. No question about that. But sometimes people don't know when to dial that back. They don't know when to dial it down. Let me try to explain what's happening on the hiring side of the desk, on my side of the desk. So as I mentioned, you wouldn't be in front of me in my office or on a video call if you weren't qualified and if I wasn't intrigued enough already about your credentials. So you sit down. Great. We have some time in that conversation for me to assess the quality of your experiences as you've represented them on paper. Because sometimes people, well, let's just face it, sometimes they stretch the truth. Sometimes they'll tell little white lies, and sometimes they'll tell big white lies. And whether it's a little lie or a big lie or stretching the truth, there are plenty of reasons why a hiring manager shouldn't just verbatim trust your resume. Because a lot of people will put stuff on their resume that's not true. So when you and I sit down, I'm going to spend a part of that time assessing the quality of your experiences. Maybe we'll get into a couple of bullet points on your resume. Maybe we'll talk about a couple of projects that you've worked on. Maybe we'll talk about a few of the achievements that you have declared in your resume. Or I might just simply ask you about, assuming you're in a job right now, tell me about the projects you're working on today at your company. However I do it, I'm simply trying to calibrate how honest you were in your resume. Can I believe that your resume is truly accurately portraying your experience and the quality of your skill sets, or are you bluffing? And it's up to me as a hiring manager to sort of sift through that and kind of figure that out. And yes, in that part of the interview, you should be selling, you should be getting detailed, you should be showing me the quality of the work that you've done. Makes sense. But this is where people kind of get things wrong. They don't stop selling. They don't stop trying to prove themselves. Let me take it another step further. The mindset of some hiring managers that I've worked with as a recruiter, I've been an insider into the hiring decision, lots of hiring decisions over the course of 20 years. I can't speak for all hiring managers. I can't speak for all hiring decisions. But I've had enough sort of substantive and proximate experience watching companies make decisions about who they're going to hire and who they're not going to hire. I can speak with some degree of credibility about what's happening in the hiring manager's mind. The hiring manager really wants you to succeed. They really want you to do well in the interview process. Why would they really want you to do well? Because I don't want to interview 50 people. I don't want to interview 25 people. I don't want to interview 15 or 10 people even if I don't have to. Because it's a big drain on my day. It's sucking a lot of time and energy away from the work I've got to do, the actual job I'm hired to do. And now I got to call a timeout on all of that and come over here and interview a bunch of people, talk to a bunch of strangers who have sent me their paper, and try to figure out who's going to be the next hire in my organization. I really want you to do well. That's my starting point in the interview is if I've invited you into my interview room, if I've invited you to take a half hour or 60 minutes or more of my day, I probably have a good first impression from your resume, at least enough to feel comfortable investing more time in you. So I really want you to do well. I'm not sitting here trying to just, do the whack-a-mole. Like, I'm not trying to just whack as many people as I can just for the sake of it. It's a waste of my time, a waste of yours. I want the first person to be the best candidate and the best hire, and boom, I'm on my way. If I can interview one person, hire that one person, and not interview anybody else, perfect. Absolutely perfection. Never happens, though. So the hiring executive, when you sit down, is preconceived, presupposed, they're pre-wired. I don't want to use the term bias because that sounds bad, but they're pre-wired to want to like you. They're pre-wired for you to be the candidate they're going to hire. They are. So when they spend a first few minutes talking about your background, when they start to figure out that maybe you did stretch the truth, maybe you did tell a few white lies, maybe you told a big, big white lie, done. Whether the interview is over or not is my choice. Whether I want to spend the rest of the time with you or not, I can decide. Interview's done. I've already weeded you out, right? But supposing you do well in that first part of the interview, and we do establish some commonality that, yes, indeed, the quality of experiences you've had fit the very experiences I'm looking for. Now, I'm feeling pretty good about you. Now that I have an idea that you're technically qualified, now I want to figure out what your style is. Are you and I going to do well together? Are you going to do well with the team that I'm going to have around you? Are you going to do well with the customers you're going to interact with? So suddenly the metric in my mind, again, no one's going to tell you this in the interview process, but in my mind what's going on is, are they technically qualified? Is what they reported on their resume accurate, truthful? Can I feel comfortable that they are indeed who they say they are and their experience is indeed what they say it is, what they've represented it to be? Great. I like you even more. I already started out with a preconceived expectation that you're the one I'm going to hire. Now I'm feeling really good about you. And now all I got to do is figure out, are you and I going to get along? Are you going to respect me as your manager? Are you going to get along with the team? Are you going to be disruptive? Are you going to get along with my customers, or are they going to leave because of you? These are the things now on my mind. And so the conversation is going to pivot, maybe from very, very specific technical things on your resume. It might pivot to a broader conversation about your experiences interacting with people, your experiences interacting with customers and teams and so forth. And there's an infinite number of ways that I could ask you questions to satisfy myself in terms of trying to figure out whether or not your style of work matches the style that our team has. This is the part where people don't stop selling. They keep selling. They keep pushing. They don't just relax and talk. They want to score points. Everything that they say almost seems rehearsed, almost seems canned. They're pulling out the cliches. They're pointing every possible thing that they've done to, a metric. Well, look at how I did this and how this percent and that percent, and look at this and that, and the dollar signs and the savings or the revenue or whatever it may be. They're still trying to prove to me something that I have already concluded that I like. I've already decided that technically you're there. And now I'm simply trying to get towards style and fit and some of the other things that are important in the hiring process. What you need to understand is if you go into an interview and the interview is strictly based on your experiences, strictly on your resume, never gets beyond that, you probably are not going to get asked back for another interview. What you're looking for are the set of conversations and questions that have to do beyond your technical experiences. Maybe they're hypothetical questions, maybe they're behavioral interviewing questions, maybe they're general questions, but they have to do with how you interact and engage. If you get to that part of the interview process, that's your signal that you can stop selling. Now, I'm not saying you can be a total jerk from there. I'm not saying you should totally relax either. I'm not saying you should completely, sort of expect you're going to get an offer. I'm not saying any of those things. What I'm saying is stop selling on all of the things that you've done and proving yourself over and over and over and over and over, because I'm moving on to style, fit, personality, those kinds of things that are equally as important. If you see my questions moving in that direction, this is where you can start storytelling, you can start relaxing, you can start engaging on a more human level, because the key at that point is simply, do I trust you, right? I know I can trust you to write a resume that accurately portrays your experience, but now the question is do I trust that the person you're showing me that you are, is that going to be the same person that's going to show up on day one if I hire you, right? That's the risk that any hiring manager takes, is they see a person in an interview room, they really like that person, they like their experience, they're qualified, they get hired, they start, and then like a completely different personality shows up out of the blue. Like this person turns out to be 100% different or 180 degrees different than the person they represented themselves to be in the interview room. And so that's why the second part of the interview process is about me just trying to figure out the real authentic you. And if I have a pretty good sense that you're being authentic, that you're not selling, that you're not constantly trying to prove to me that you're the perfect candidate, that you're the best candidate, because I know you're not perfect, and I know you're probably, maybe hypothetically not the best, but you might be a really good one, and you might do really well in this role. All I want to do is figure out, can I trust you? Can I get past the face and the mask that you're projecting as an interviewer? Can I get to know the real you in that span of 30 or 60 minutes? So, all of that to simply say, the biggest mistake is people oversell. The thing that you want to do in the interview process is recognize the difference between technical questions about your experiences that come mostly from your resume to general questions about relationships and how you engage with people. When you see that happen, relax, be authentic, stop selling. Stop selling. Let me make the decision that I like you enough to want to bring you back for the next round. I'd be curious what your experiences have been in the interview room. I'd be curious to get what your take is on the forensics of kind of what a hiring manager is thinking, but not articulating, not saying. I'd be curious if you are a hiring manager or an HR professional or a recruiter and you have a different way that you are thinking about how you assess candidates in the interview room. I'd love to hear it. Post it below. If you have a question, try to send it to me and I'll do my best to respond to it, or maybe shoot a video. I'm David Pinkley. Good luck out there in job search land. We'll see you soon.